Hello, it's Donna here from Homesteading New Zealand with the Blind Knitter. I hope you're all well. Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and I wish you a very happy New Year. So probably lots of New Year's resolutions. I think they usually come on the 1st of January and are over by the 15th of January or 30th of January. I'm not one for making them myself. I tend to have goals through the year. So, yeah, that's not. My New Year's resolution last year was, do you lose 4 kilos? And I've done really well. I've got 15 to go. So, yeah, this is probably not worth doing. In a different setting today, we're in my sewing area. I am a legally blind knitter, sewer, crafter, homesteader, and a social worker who has a passion for understanding mental well-being and hopefully imparting some tips on mental well-being as well. Yes, I live in New Zealand, the North Island of New Zealand, so welcome if you're new. Hello back if you are one of my existing watchers. Yes, I am going to do a 2024 rundown of what I made, because there's not a great deal actually. I did have a slower year. I looked back on my 2023, 2023, gosh, the years go so fast, breakdown of what I made the year before, and I needed a massive laundry basket to carry it all in. I don't need a massive laundry basket this year, and so half of it's sewing, half of it's knitting. Yes, so hence being in the sewing room, because I have done a lot of sewing recently. I kind of lost my mojo, and I'm pretty sure I talked about this in past podcasts. I lost my mojo a wee bit for knitting, and I struggled to get it back, but I was dabbling in the sewing, and so now I've got my mojo for sewing back, plus my mojo for crocheting and knitting, so it's all back on me. Yeah, so hence I've got quite a bit to show you. So I'm going to do a rundown of what I've made last year. I think one of it particularly was started and made, one of them was made probably in late 2023, but I'm going to bring it anyway because I'm not sure if I ever really showed it on my podcast. Some of my knitting was started late 2023 but finished 2025. But we'll talk about that. So that's what the rundown is going to be for the day. And yeah, let's get started. So this dress here is a dress that I sewed, and it would have been in 2023 because I wore it in the summer of 2024, but I'm not sure if I showed it. So and it's one of my proudest ones. I just absolutely adore this dress. So the fabric I brought from Evans's in Masterton. It is a heavy cotton with an elastine or a viscose. It's got a mild stretch. It's not both ways, so it's not a spandex. It just stretches in one direction. So it's very comfortable. It's a lined bodice. As you can see, I've lined the bodice, but not the bottom. The pattern I have, gosh, I'm so organised, it's scary, guys. I have the patterns here. So the pattern for that was a butterick pattern number 4443, and I made the middle one there. And yeah, it was a great pattern, nice and easy, very simple. I wouldn't say a new sewer's pattern. It did have some shaped bust, like it was a 3-piece bodice, well, 6-piece bodice, so 3-piece front and 4-piece back. So yeah, so you did have down the seams down the bust line with some needing to sort of ease it in, etc. So certainly not what I would call a new sewer's pattern, but reasonably easy. So if you're a confident sewer or want to push yourself past something that's just that little bit more challenging, that is the one. It's a really nice fit, and probably the main reason it's a really nice fit is it's the first dress I made with my whatever you call this, because you know my brain just my dressmaking model, who is modelling my figure there, so hopefully she's doing it justice. So that's the first dress I ever made on that, so that certainly helped with the fit. I found it made it wonderful. I got lazy near the end. It was supposed to have a zip in the back, and quite frankly I just sewed up the back, and I had it pinned up to fit it on, and I was able to put it on pinned up, and I thought, why am I putting a zip in something that I can just put on, because it's got that little bit of give. It's a lovely, lovely dress to wear, really pretty, and I feel quite nice in it. It's quite a nice little dress. Where am I going to put I'll put them down there. So that was beginning of 2024, end of 2023. I did also cast on in the knitting zone this, which is my Corin cardigan by Rebecca Clow, and she's a Scottish designer and has lots of patterns out, and this one is called the Corin. This is the one that I lost my mojo on. Now, it wasn't the pattern itself. It was a nice pattern to knit. It was quite simple. It was very easy to remember. It was quite instinctive once you got into it. It's a nice sort of lace pattern, if you can see there. So it was more where I was at, I think, my head. So there was a lot of government stuff going on, and I've talked about this in the past podcasts about I lost a funding contract with my business that I run, a social work business, and so I had a lot of head stuff trying to work out how I was going to do that, and some tough decisions to make. And so this wasn't a pattern that I could just pick up and get my mental well-being out of, which is just knit, 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 knit. This was one that every time I picked it up, I had to work out what row I was on, because it's a 3-row repeat. So the first and third rows were almost identical but slightly different, and that you had to kind of keep track of which one you were on. And I'd never in the past ever knitted a full lace pattern, so I wanted to make sure I kept an eye on it, and being legally blind, of course, that's always a bit of a challenge as well. The second reason I lost my mojo on it is that I bought this wool at a sale, and it was so cheap. I think it was $20 for 10 skeins or something. It was one of those ones we all grabbed. I was with some knitting friends, and we all grabbed a packet each, and I grabbed this one. It is called Roving. It is a skeins wool, and it is unspun, so it's not twisted, so it's definitely a fibre. And everybody that bought it started saying, oh, I didn't like knitting with it, I was worried it kept breaking, I'm really worried that it's going to felt. And sure enough, as I was knitting this, I would pick up a new skein out of my bag which had started to felt together, and so I started to think, oh my gosh, is this worth really following through with? But I'm stubborn and determined, and so I thought, right, I'm going to get it finished. And week 1 of January of 2025, so it took 13 months, I finished it, and quite honestly, I quite like it. It fits beautifully. It's a lovely fit. So yeah, I can give you the details. So what did I do? I did, as I said, it's called the Corin cardigan, and I did a size 5 on a 4mm and a 5mm needle, 4mm for the rib, 5 for the lace. And I had 10 skeins, but I started to get very close to near the end, got a little worried, and I put it out on Facebook to my knitting friends around the country, and a wonderful woman in Wellington had 5 skeins, so she posted them to me, same batch, and I have nearly 3 skeins left, so it's taken me 12 skeins, which is kind of normal for my knitting. I usually take 12 to 14 skeins for a jersey. So I finished it on the 1st of January, Happy New Year, and yeah, started it on the 4th of November. And I've written 2024, but that's not right, it was 2023. So yeah, Roving. Oh, I better not shut that because I'm going to need that, aren't I? Yeah, that was an all-year project, to be honest, but really happy with it. I wanted a cardigan that just sat there, so that's exactly what I wanted. Even cardigans I wear that have buttons on it, I don't button up because I find that I'm big busted, so that they go like that. So I just wanted one that sat there, I could slip on with a dress or something. It's an unusual colour. It's a colour I like, but it is a funny colour to match. It's cream fawn with a leaning of pink, and hence I've got pink under it today, and I think pink tends to be the colour that looks the best with it. But it's just going to be a handy cardigan. I did put one buttonhole up the top there because I thought I might join it there, but it's not going to work. It just sits. Anyway, I'm super happy with it. It's if I can stand up, it is a cropped cardi, so it is just, there's my natural waistline is here, so it's just a little bit longer than my natural waistline. I think it'll look quite nice with a dress. Yeah, I might end up taking this off shortly because it's actually getting quite warm. I've worn it quite a bit and it hasn't felted yet. There's a pill. So I suspect it will felt and pill, so I'm not expecting long life from this. So that was the Corin cardigan. So after the Corin, I got back into my sewing and I started making myself a dressing gown. I really wanted a long dressing gown to the ground, just to snuggle. When I put my dressing gown on, if I'm cold in the evening, I like to snuggle, and I like it. And I'm very tall, 6 foot. So dressing gowns you buy from town, they usually are just below the knee or half calf length, and I wanted a full length one. And often I find, because I'm an albatross with hugely long arms, yes, this is pulling a bit, isn't it? There's another one there. I can never get them to sort of come where it's cozy. So I made my own. I have to say, it was $80 for the fabric. Now I could have brought a dressing gown from the warehouse for $20. So sewing for yourself is not a cheap, and knitting, this was cheap, but knitting's not a cheap habit or hobby either. And you have to be prepared for that. So, I don't like buying a lot of stuff out of China. I don't, we won't get into politics, but I try hard to just buy the minimal from there. I do. I'm not a purist, but I thought I would make a dressing gown that I would be happy with everything on me. Now I've lost the pattern. I found one of the guide sheets and I know the number of the pattern, but I don't even know what brand it is. So the number's 9287. I'm suspecting the Simplicity or a Butterick, which tend to be my go-tos. It'll be around here somewhere, I imagine, like when I strip the bed or pull out something, I will find it, but I have lost it for the moment. Really happy with it. It's super long. It's so big that I can't even manage it. So I didn't do a shawl collar. I did I'm not sure why. I probably would have liked a shawl collar look-wise better, but this is lovely because it comes up around my neck. So, although it's not really the collar, if I can show that I wanted, it's okay. It's very, very long, full length, and I got to have pockets, so I put pockets on it, big pockets like that, which are just sewed on, and I lined the pockets with a pretty piece of pink floral, just for a bit of hidden, like when you sew your pockets on, underneath you've got that little hidden bit there, and I folded it over at the top so that you've got a hidden bit there. So big pockets, and it does what the packet says it does. It's a big, long, warm, cozy, hugging dressing gown out of fleece. I put a tab on it to hang there. See the tab there, and I made a long belt for it, which is a tie-up belt, and put tabs on the sides. So that was my next mission. It's big. I said to Mr. Farmer, I'm going to have to change where we hang our dressing gowns to something higher so that it doesn't drag on the ground, which is what it is doing now. But oh, you can't have it always, can you? So that was my next make of 2024, my dressing gown. And my next cast on was, where's it gone? Has it fallen on the ground? Probably fall. Oh, here it is. My next cast on was what happens when I had my mojo loss. My loss of mojo for knitting is one of my knitting friends, one of my good friends, Sandy, said to me, why don't you go back to something simple and small, and, you know, get a dopamine hit from something like that? And I thought, what a really good idea. This was, you know, as I said, a heady thing. I have another cast on which I will show you in my UFO. It's not a UFO, it's my whip. It's not going to be a UFO. I'm going to finish it. So I've got a whip that I'll show you that I also cast on. Again, that was lace and heady. So, I'll show you that later. And I thought, well, yeah, that's a really good idea. What I need to do is just get my mojo back. So I cast on a bandana cowl. So my daughter has the same eye disease as me, and she's not able to drive now, and she has a electric scooter to get around on, and she was getting quite cold here with it. And so I thought, right, what you need is a cowl. So I found a bandana cowl, and that's exactly what it's called. It's called a bandana cowl. I can't tell you who the pattern is because I forgot to look it up. But anyway, it's one of those ones that just about everybody's made. It comes down in a simple V to here. I'll put a picture in over here or over here, depending on what happens. It's a simple V, and it's a cowl. And what I did was I made it a little bit longer with ribs, so almost like a polo neck or a long neck, because she wanted to be able to pull it up over her mouth. I did consider doing a balaclava, but then I thought that's hard with your helmet. So she wanted something, and so she can pull that up around over her mouth, and it's wool, so it can breathe and still have a warm neck, warm chin, warm neck, and across her mouth. And it works really well. So she's really happy with it. It's a really pretty apricot-y colour. It's just a skein of wool that I just took two skeins of wool from Skeins. And it's something like a 90% wool, 10% silk, and so it's got a little bit of softness to it, but I wanted the wool to be, I wanted soft around the neck because you don't want that scratchy, but I wanted wool for warmth. And so that was the one that kind of got my mojo back. It was like, yeah, I do love knitting. And so I decided next to cast on something that again was really simple, looked really simple, and was a lot of stocking stitch because I had all this head stuff going on. I didn't need anything that kept me thinking. I just needed no. So I found a pattern called the Venetian, and where is my bits and pieces? So it's called the Venetian Tank, and it is by Sari Nordland. And I've knitted in a DK. It's a Skeins wool. Again, I'm not sponsored by Skeins, but I do tend to have a lot of their wools. Good workhorses. I did it on. I did a size 5, and I started in October. No, I didn't. I started in 2024, and I finished it on the 22nd of December. So, and I used a 7. Don't even know what that is. It used 7 skeins it's the Skeins vintage wool. And ta-da, here it is. So I really like it. I didn't think I would. So it is a tank top that you wear sleeveless, although I suspect I can wear it with a shirt underneath, but it does come up quite high. And it's nice and simple. All it is stocking stitch, and it comes to just, it's I don't wear cropped because that's just not me with my great mummy. See, I became a great grandmother last year. Oh, that was one of my wonderful things. I became a great grandmother. I've got the great grandma tummy to go with it, so I don't wear cropped. So it's comes to sort of just touching my hips, and I wear a skirt or a dress under it. It's just plain stocking stitch, but it had you don't pick it up, you just knit the collar. What are they called? Oh, golly Wally, I do worry about my brain sometimes. I've lost what they're called, but you just finish it off with this cord, I-cord, there we go, I-cord. So it's got I-cords on the sleeves and I-cords on the neck, and the back is the creme de la creme that has a nice little keyhole opening, and I just put a nice little loop on it with a pretty button. And that was such an easy thing to do, so much so, and I'm not one for doing patterns a second time, but so much so that I think I'll do it again. And I thought what I might do was watching the grocery girls before, and one of the girls had made a vest, and she'd made it was a similar pattern to this, and she'd made it a bit longer down here so she could wear a collar on it. And I thought, yeah, I've got some beautiful knit by numbers wool that I brought from Lisa at Unwind and Knit in Christchurch, and it's a gorgeous colour. It's a really pretty sort of pale cerisi pink, and I thought, oh yeah, that might be quite nice. So I'm tossing up whether to do a vest, you know, you just your good old-fashioned v-neck vest, or one of these that I can wear either like this or as a vest. I wore this, I went to Australia between Christmas and New Year to see my grandchildren and my son and daughter-in-law over in Aussie, and I wore this over there, which was great because transitioning from excuse me, New Zealand's cooler weather to 33 degrees over there, this was good because being wool, it was nice on me for the cooler weather, but it's sleeveless, so it was good for the breathing and the hot weather when I got there. The only problem was that my shoulder bag has caught it across the ear, so I'm going to have to do some gleaning or something there just to tidy that up. So I had a little shoulder piece on, and it was rubbing with the zip across there. So I've really liked that. So the Venetian by Sari Nordland, and thoroughly enjoyed it. The vest that one of the grocery girls was wearing is also a Sari Nordland vest, and I thought I might go and have a look at that one as well, but very similar to this, but it did have the rib. I do like that because with my eyesight, I struggle with picking up. I did pick up these quite well though, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I do like the I-cord finishes. So that was my next finish. I was just going to talk about this for a minute. The last cardigan I made was the Bentley, and I love my Bentley. It's really very good. I've forgotten who the designer is anyway. But when I picked up the stitches, I have picked them up a little bit too big, and so it does just a little bit, just is a bit loose, the ribbing. With this one, instead of picking them up the way I used to, which is to hold my wool in my left hand and my needle in the right and put it in, put my wool through like that, if that makes sense, I'd put my needle into the garment, pick up my wool and pull it through so that then I had the yarn on my needle. Instead of doing that, with this one, I held my garment flat and I got an empty needle, and I picked up in between the rows the stitches like that, so that I just had the garment on my needle, and then I went back and knit off. And I saw it on a podcast, and I thought, well, that was really good. That certainly helped me, and I picked up 5 of 7. So every 7 stitches on the garment, I picked up only 5. So picked up 1, missed 1, picked up 3, missed 1, picked up 1. And that has been perfect. So perfect little recipe there. My next garment, my next garment here is a little skirt. So I was watching a sewing podcast, and this woman was making skirts without a pattern, and so she just made a nice little skirt, and I thought, gosh, that's exactly what I need. I had brought this piece of material, here's the material, from my friend Carol, who owns the Stitch Inn in Kiripuni. It is a patchwork material called, it's part of a group of fabrics called the Laundry Basket, and I brought it to make a pair of jammy pants. But when I got it home, I thought, oh, it's way too pretty for a pair of jammy pants. It's not my normal go-to. My normal go-to is big florals. Not so much dark and sort of this, but it's got a sort of, I suppose it's wheat and like little irises or flowers, little mini flowers in it, and it's rather pretty. So I thought, oh, it's way too pretty for jammy pants, and it's a really good sturdy quality. I'm just breaking a thread off that I've found on my skirt. There we go. Cotton, it's pure cotton. So I brought it home, washed it up, and had it sitting here for my jammies, and thought, no, I'm going to make a skirt out of it. So I did. I didn't use a pattern. I just used as a formula that you can use to find out how much material gathering you want. I've done a band, so I've just done an interfaced band. I haven't sewn the button on yet. That's my next mission. I've done the buttonhole there. So I've done a band that I have interfaced, and I gathered the skirt onto it. So I just made a straight skirt. You measure your waist measurement, you have what your waist measurement is, and then you multiply that by 3, and that is the amount of gather you have in it. So say for example I had a 40-inch, I'm using that because it's an easy one to know, 40-inch waist, halve it, that's 20 inches, and then you multiply that by 3, which is 60, and that's how much you need, 60 inches. Now, so that's a nice little recipe, so that you don't need, just for a simple skirt, I have just hemmed it with a ordinary, I just turned it over like so, and hemmed it up. So it's nice and neatly hemmed. I just tried a new trick that I saw on a podcast, and I used, still sitting here by my sewing machine because I haven't put it away yet, dental floss for the gathering. I don't think I'll do it again. So what you do is you have a very wide, very long, so a 4x4 zigzag, and you put dental floss on your fabric where you want your gathering, and you zigzag the dental floss onto your skirt, and then you pull a skirt, gather it in on the dental floss, which yes, it didn't break, which was great, because there's nothing more annoying than when you're pulling gathering stitches and the thread breaks. Didn't break, which was great. It was nice, felt nice and sturdy, but I just don't think it did as neat a gather as it would if you'd done the 2 rows of basting stitch and pulled them together. It's okay, but I think it could have been neater, and there was a couple of places where I actually had to unpick it because it had folded over as I was gathering. So just a very simple straight skirt, and look at this, they go beautifully together. So I wore my Venetian and my new skirt. Well, it doesn't look so great on here, but it does in life. Well, I hope it does. I wore it. So I wore those yesterday out. I had a lovely lunch, met a friend who is over from one of my very good friends' sister who lives in Scotland is over, and so I caught up with her. So that was my next. Now that is my last of my finishes. I think that's all. Yeah, so as I said, it's not a laundry basket full, but it is quite a few. So that's my finishes. Now my whips, the 2 whips that one of the whips, sorry, getting old. Now this is the one I was talking about, was also started at about the same time as the Corin, and again it is a jersey that has a lot of thinking about it, so I'm going to get into it now. but I had started it, so I have started it with, oops, hang on, get it all out, this beautiful, beautiful wool, and I have no idea who it is. I bought it at a wool fair, but it's a beautiful orange. It's definitely got silk in it, so it's wool and silk. It's a 4-ply, and it's kind of a flecked, two-toned orange and cream. And so I started casting on. There it is there. I've done some short rows. The pattern, oh, I keep dropping everything, sorry, is called First Impressions by Iona Ryzen. I think her last name is. First Impressions. There it is there. There it is there. It is a lovely little summer top, and it has stripes of lace through it. So I'm quite looking forward to knitting it. I think it'll be really pretty to wear. And this, I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful wool. And I've got 4 hanks of this, or skeins, depending on what you want to call them. I used to call them hanks, but now we're calling them skeins. And so that is going to be picked up and worked on. I'll put that down there. And that's in a cute little sheep bag. Isn't that cute? It's got the sheeps on it. So that's going to be worked on as a definite. And my other cast on, I thought, keep it simple, Donna. You don't want to lose your mojo. Keep it simple. Do something you really enjoy, and do something that is rhythmic, and that's exactly what I need at the moment. I don't need anything that is learning or, you know, I need to concentrate or is a big mission. I just wanted something nice and simple. And I love to crochet, but, you know, I don't know. I know crocheting's coming back into fashion, and it's certainly having a renaissance now, which is wonderful. But I just have never really had the, well, in fact, I've had a massive clean out of my area. I've got boxes to go to jumble of all this acrylic wool that I don't want to keep, and stock stuff. I've had a big clean out, and one of the things I did find was a bag with about 25 crocheted pure cotton white squares, piggy squares with flowers on them that I'd made, and it was before children, so over 40 years ago. It was sitting right at the bottom of one of my bags. Yeah, I ADD, and I get halfway through a project and especially if it's like making 100 piggy squares that you now have to join together. But I do like to crochet. So I went on a workshop while I was at Cairn Knit August Nights up in Napier last year, and we learned how to make a 6-cornered piggy square. So you have 6 corners. So this is what I've been doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's not a square, it's an odd shape, as you can see. And I have got this beautiful wool which is called Eden, and I bought this at Stitch in Masterton, and I've got 6 different colours there. So I started with the burgundy, and then the pink, and then the dark teal, pale blue, and then a sage, and then the gold, and now I'm back to the burgundy. So I'm doing the colours through. Now what you do is you fold it like this, and if you can see, that is going to be a cardigan, and that's the underarm. So there's the underarm, and there's down your front, and there's along your sleeve, and you just keep going, crocheting, crocheting, crocheting till it gets bigger this way and bigger this way, and then you've got your cardigan. So I have started the second side. I'll try and put it together so you can see, which is my other sleeve. So that would be one sleeve, that will be the other sleeve, and it will be a jacket open at the middle. Hopefully you can understand that. It makes a bit of sense. And yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it. I think it'll look fantastic in the winter with a pair of jeans and a white t-shirt. Colourful, but not sort of out there. I think the colours all blend really well together. They're a lovely sort of colours. I did originally, and this was another one of my, oh no, I've taken on more than I can mentally cope with at the moment. So I originally bought this yarn wool to make, with the help of Carol, my friend, a celestial blanket. That's it there, crochet blanket. She's got one and it is in these colours and it looks exquisite. I fell in love with it and I said, I've got to make one of those. So of course, you know, started one. Didn't even get the first square finished. Octagonal, I think it is. That's the first one. It's not finished. And this again was another one where I thought, this is too much for my head. So I put it aside. And that's when I started using the wool for the other things. So whether I go back to this celestial blanket or not, I don't know. I'm not going to unpick this for now because I might go back to it. I'd like to, but at the moment I don't have the headspace. But I'm just going to put the wool to good use because it's stunning wool and make this jacket, which I don't think it'll take me long at all. So what I'm doing is I'm doing one colour on one side and then I'll do that colour on that side and then I'll do that colour on that side and that colour on that side. So hopefully I'll have the two sides of the jacket finished at the same time and then I can just stitch down the back, and if I want to put an edge on it I can. One of the lady, the tutor that took the course, she came from Waihi, and I have Waiheke Island, and she had, instead of just joining the two at the back, she had done a panel of piggy squares down the back in the colours of the jacket, and I actually quite liked that. I thought, oh, that I quite like. So that is a possibility. But that's the thing with crocheting, you can, or any craft really, you can get halfway through and think, I don't like that, I'm going to change that, or I'm going to skew with that. So that's one of the advantages. That's my I won't say, those are my whips. Those are the things I'm determined to carry on with. I do have some UFOs, quite a few UFOs sitting there, and they're just going to sit there till I'm ready. That's okay. If I don't enjoy this, I do it for my mental well-being. If I don't enjoy it and I start to feel pressured, then I need to do something about that, and I did this year. And I do not want to be pressured by the UFOs sitting in my basket. Now, we know it's been Christmas, and I got two wonderful Christmas presents, one each for my children. They must know my crafts and what I love. My lovely daughter brought me this neat little knitting bag, and it's one that has the holes in it. It's got a little eyelet holes in it, two on that side and two on that side, for putting your knitting in and putting your wool out the eyelet and knitting while you're on the go, like in the car. And I quite like knitting in the car, so this will be great. It's got a little pocket on it, and it's waterproof too, which I've just realised. That's really handy because I can knit at the beach and things, or if the weather's not so grand. So yeah, you put the wool out there and you knit with holding it up like that. So thank you, my lovely daughter. That is really appreciated, and it will get used, and it's really pretty colours. So I did like that for Christmas. And my son also knows my crafts, and he got me a wool bowl. Look, it's got, I don't know if you can see that, mum or mom, and with the U as a heart. Yeah, so I have tried using it. My wool just flies out of it, but I thought it might be quite nice sitting on my sewing table, on the edge of my sewing table, for things like my quick unpick and you know, the odd reel of thread and my magnifying glass and those sorts of things. So that's probably what it's going to be used for, is more those sorts of things. But that was, better make sure it's used because it's crockery, I don't want to break it. So those were my two crafty Christmas gifts. What else have I got here? So my other whips sewing, excuse me a sec, I'll just reach over and get them. So while I'm on the sewing mission, I had so I brought myself, I shouted myself, this was my Christmas present to me, wherever it is. Don't even know where it is now. It's a roller cutter. And so it took me 2 hours. I put the trestle out in the lounge, I put the mat out, and I roller cut, no pins, which is fantastic without sight. I used baked bean tins of baked beans, holding my patterns down and cut it out with my roller. Fantastic. So I cut out one skirt and 2 dresses in about 2 hours. Probably would have taken me that and a whole lot of knee pain, because I used to do it on the floor. I don't know why I never thought of doing it on a trestle before. My house is really small, so I don't really have a good area, or my dining room table is round, so that's hard to cut on. So I've always done it on the floor. You know, I'm in that, you get older and oldest brackets when you start getting, I'm starting to creep into the old bracket. I'm not in the older or the oldest, but I am starting to creep into the old. So then on your knees doing cutting out's not so grand. So I had this piece of fabric, and I've had this for years, and it's a beautiful piece of cotton. I don't even know where I got it from. I think I got it from Spotlight, which is kind of like your Joann's, I think, over in America. So it's just a lovely cotton with a pretty little daisy on it. And so I was always going to make a shift frock with it. But I changed my mind because I found, I went op shopping the other day and I bought myself a bag full of patterns. $2, $1 each for those patterns. And I bought about 20 of them, and those are going to be my sort of base patterns. So I found a pattern, wherever it is. I had it out, ready to show you. Oh, there we go. This is the one I'm going to make with this. It's called the Heidi Day Dress, and it is by, what are they called? Pattern Emporium. And you send away and you get a PDF that is sent to you, and you have to go and get it printed and cut out. So hence why it's in a plastic bag, because I've had this printed out. And I really like the idea, because you can reuse and reuse those, especially if you don't use pins. So Heidi dress, just a simple little sun frock. Again, I'm just keeping things nice and simple. It's got a tie on it, shoulder straps, and so that's all cut out, ready to go. Sewing number 1. Sewing number 2 is I have, this material is also in the laundry basket collection from, it's a patchwork material again, but I fell in love with it. This is my mojo, this sort of print, roses, prints, tulips, my colours, my mojo, I adore. So it is a pure cotton. It's like a twill, so it's quite flowy, but it's going to be solid. It's going to be very similar to my red flowery dress, and so I'm really excited to cut that out. Well, I have cut it out, and the pattern I was going to make, but there's been a dilemma because I forgot the patchwork material is wonderful for sewing with, but it is narrower. It's considerably narrower. It's usually only just over 1 metre wide, whereas when you buy from fabric shops, you're tending to get 1.5. So you get, it sounds expensive when you go to fabric shops, but the material is wider. So I didn't have enough material, so I'm going to make, I was going to make the Heidi frock, which is another Pattern Emporium. No, not Heidi. Meet You There. I should have some funny names on these patterns. Meet You There, which is a lovely bodice, big puff sleeves and tears on it. So put the sleeve pattern on, way too wide, and it's very much a pattern that has a direction, so I couldn't put the sleeve the other way. So what I've done is I've narrowed the sleeve down so that it won't be near as puffed, which is fine by me. It just means it's a different design. I've kept that bodice, and then I went to go back to the shop to buy enough material to finish the tears off, to discover it's out of, they don't have any more. And I love this. So I've had to, and I actually don't know where it is now. Oh, it's over there. Oh my gosh, my sewing area is becoming such a mess. I've had to buy, I'm pretty sure it's in here. Yep, there it is. A contrast. So when I worked at Vanina, as I have said many times before, I am have been, oh my gosh, you should see this room. I've worked for Vanina for years, and did dressmaking, and of course now that I am losing my sight, I cannot be as precise, but I was always one to teach people, if you can't get a good match, it's better to go for a good contrast than a bad match. So I went for a good contrast. So what do you think? I think they're going to be quite nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one side of the frock this way, one side of the frock that way, and at the back I'll do it the opposite, so that it's got two, yeah, I'll have the bodice and the floral and the dress, which won't be tiered because that takes a lot of material with the gathering, so it'll just be a straight, I'll probably use the same recipe as I did for the skirt, where I measure the measurement, halve it, triple that half measurement, and that's how much I'll have. So yeah, it is again rather pretty. That is exactly the same color because it's the same laundry basket, so it's all from the same category of materials, and so I'm going to go for a good contrast rather than a bad match. And so I have made a hell of a mess of my room, but that is my next mission, is I've got those two dresses cut out ready to sew, and I might do those next weekend because they won't take long. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed sewing, to be honest. I said to Mr. Farmer on, what's today? Today is, you know, when you're on holiday, it's Sunday today. So it must have been about Thursday or Friday. I said, I'm going to go and just mend that dress. I had a dress that had a tear in it that I needed mending. Mend that dress and I might make a start on that skirt. And that was at 3:30. And I thought, oh, a couple of hours, I'll be out. And then I was sewing. I was having such one. I was totally away and enjoying myself, just la la land, which is exactly what you want. You don't, you know, you want to be able to, it's like meditation. It just takes you away. And Mr. Farmer came in and said, are you going to finish? What about, you know, are you hungry? What about tea? And I said, why? What's the time? And he said it was 7:30. I'd been in here 4 hours and it felt like an hour. So, you know, and I felt so good afterwards. I said to him, look, I've just got the buttonhole to do in that skirt. I finished the skirt, I finished my mending. And so I came out with this massive serotonin and dopamine bubble bath in my brain. I was feeling so good. Yeah, so that's what you need to do, is just get lost in your crafts. Don't put pressure on yourself. And that's, I suppose that's my mental health advice today, is sometimes we can just burden ourselves with, you know, needing to feel like we have to progress in our art and that we have to learn something new, or you know, do something big, or we don't. We just sometimes that, you know, the KISS theory, keep it simple stupid, KISS, keep it simple stupid, just keep it simple, and which is what I've done over the last probably 8 months, and my mojo's back. And what I'll do is I'll do a swing around in a moment of my craft room. You'll see that my mojo's back. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and I thought I might do a podcast just on this alone later, but I just wanted to quickly talk about it. And as I've said, I am legally blind. I just have about that much vision, good vision. And even that's getting, it's like sort of got Vaseline smeared over it, is what it kind of is like now. And I have to do good light, and I have to, you know, so Mr. Farmer and I talked about maybe me putting a big window on this side of the sewing room so that I can have some more good light in here. That's a fantastic lot of light that comes in, but I've got big dark curtains up there so that people in here can sleep, which, you know, sort of defeats the purpose a wee bit. and one of my knitting friends said, Sandy, she had said her husband had put a strip of fluoro lighting above her sewing machine. I thought, well, I need to do that. So I thought, okay, I need to start really thinking about how can I make sewing easier for me. I've worked really hard to make knitting easier for me with my site. And as I said, I worked for Benina for years and have sewed all my life, right through young child. Mum brought me a sewing machine when I was really young. And there's things that have come and gone, and fashion and change and, you know, tools and things that you forget about. And I was watching a podcast the other day, and she was changing her sewing machine needle, and I thought, oh God, I hate that job. You know, when your sewing machine needle breaks and you've got to try and get that needle in with the flat bit at the back, and you're trying to find the hole and push it up. And then I thought, oh, that's right. I remember many years ago, Benina used to have, and I think other sewing machine brands do as well, but you can always get one of these. It's a Benina one. A little brush, you know, like for cleaning out your bobbin area, which you must do is clean your area. I'll do one on maintenance of sewing machine one day. And at the other end, and I'm not sure if you're able to see that, it's got a hole in it. You probably can't see it, but there is definitely a ridge with a hole in it. Now, that what you do is you put your sewing machine needle in that hole so that it sits up, and then you put that into your sewing machine and lift it up and screw you tight your sewing needle and then bring it off. So it's so much easier. And I'd forgotten about these until I saw that podcast, and I thought, I'm going to go and see if I can get one. And lo and behold, they had one. So that has really going to help with that. So that's number one, was that purchase. Then I thought, gosh, what were the other things that came out that were kind of the rage at the time that had fizzled off? And the other thing, when I was making my skirt, I had to sew the button on. I thought, oh God, I can't get this. I couldn't find my little needle threader. So I found my big needle threader and Mr. Farmer. I went in there and said, can you please thread my needle? You know, can you imagine farming hands, gnarly farming hands? But anyway, he got it for me. I thought, when I was at Benina, there we used to have sewing machine needles that were easy thread. We didn't have automatic threaders on our sewing machines in those days. What it was the hole that the thread went through used to have a little slot in the side. Now that does tend to weaken the needle, as you can imagine. So one side of the hole is solid and the other side's got a little slit in it. But you would run your thread down it and it would slip into the needle, and then that was thread. You can still get them. So I've ordered some to give it a try. Now I do remember that they were a little weaker. So whether modern day has changed them, and obviously you're not going to be doing denim and things with it because that would put too much pressure on it. But for day-to-day stuff. And then I said, can you get those in a sewing needle? Well, you can. Blow me down, you can. So I have brought myself 6 needles that are all, and I think they're called easy thread needles. I can't read the price, but if you're able to read the price, good luck to you. Yeah, so I am really chuffed with that. So they've got the little slit in the eye, and you just run your thread down, and in theory, I haven't tried them yet, pop some. Can't see why it wouldn't work. So 2 things to make my life easier, 2 things that were a big challenge. The next thing I want to do is look at my overlocker, because I do miss using my overlocker. I believe you can buy them where they self-thread now. So that might be an investment. It is a big investment, but I know I'd use it. So that might be something in the future. But for now, that is going to make my life so much easier. I am going to give all my sewing needles away. I'm going to get them out of the house, because even when I was getting the needle out to get Mr. Farmer to thread my needle, I dropped one and I thought, holy poo, that is not good. Many years ago, when my son was about 6 or 7, and of course I always sewed, he stood on a sewing needle and it broke into his foot, and I knew that there was quite a bit in there because I could tell by the thickness that was left on the broken part of the needle. So he had to go in for surgery and have, I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny at the time, a piece of sewing needle taken out of his foot. So I am always conscious of that. So I'm going to get rid of all of my sewing needles. I'm going to take them to knitting group next week, and my friends can help themselves to all of my sewing needles except for those ones. Yay. Little jump of joy. Oh, jazz hands. So I think that's pretty much it. The other thing I've been doing, of course, is my veggie garden this time of the year. It is just flourishing. Mr. Farmer brought in 3 or 4 tomatoes, my first lot of tomatoes. We've got salad coming out our ears. I bought 2 massive cauliflowers in yesterday and some broccoli. I thought I might make a quiche, a self-crusting quiche. I might do that next in my podcast next. For my lunches, I'll pop them in the freezer. So yeah, my next podcast will probably be cooking, because I really do need to get some frozen meals back in the freezer, because I just miss having particularly meatballs and spaghetti, and if I've got tomatoes coming out my ears, which I suspect I will soon, that's going to be my mish. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed that. I know if you're not a knitter or a sewer or a crafter, it's not the homesteady part, but it's certainly part of being in running a homestead. I was going to just quickly give you a round of my room because of the mess. Now there's my sewing machine there, and there is all my craft bits. Oh, I can't point over there. All my craft bits. I'm going to get rid of that because it's a very big heavy piece. I want a corner table, office table in there, and I want some shelving so that I can put some of those up. Get rid of that off there, and that'll lighten that area up. There's my chair that I use for counselling when I'm working, but also sewing. Those duvets, I have a van that I'm going to kit out to sleep in for if you go away. So those duvets are there ready for that. Look at my ironing board. Now that's another little tip that I have on YouTube. Drop your ironing board down to this height, and so when I'm sewing, I can swing to my sewing machine, do my sewing, and then swing to my iron and do my ironing, because I always iron while I'm sewing without having to get up. Now that has been amazing. Look at this mess, and look at this mess down here. Oh my gosh. And that's only part of it. Anyway, I'm gonna go and clean up my sewing room, have a cup of tea, and I thought I might put my feet up. It's Sunday afternoon, it's a miserable day, we've had terrible weather, and do a bit of crocheting and watch some TV, some Brain Dead, and enjoy my Sunday. So bye for now. Ka kite anō.